is the easiest.
Totally understandable. It's when you Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors meeting for January 21st, 2025 to order. Please rise as you are able and join me for this Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I will recognize the Assistant Township Manager who will go over our meeting procedures and call the roll.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the members of the board, staff, and public for joining us this evening for the January 21st regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. This meeting has been properly advertised in accordance with the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act as a hybrid meeting with the option to attend virtually and in person here in the main meeting room. If you are in attendance virtually using the WebEx platform and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please say your name, municipality of residence, and the topic you wish to speak on when the chair calls on you. If you are attending in person with us in the main meeting room and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please address the board at the podium and state your name, municipality of residence, and the topic you wish to speak on. Prior to commencing the meeting, I have a few short procedural items to cover. First, members of the public attending using the WebEx platform are asked to remain muted during the meeting to prevent any ambient noise from disrupting the meeting. If a member of the public is acknowledged by the chair, they may unmute their microphone for their question or comment. Secondly, board members are asked to indicate their name when motioning or seconding a motion so that the minutes may accurately reflect the action taken. Finally, a roll call of the Board of Supervisors will now be taken to ensure that all members can hear and interact using the WebEx meeting platform. Please indicate that you are here when your name is called. Ms. Strickland. Ms. Stevens.
Here.
Mr. Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Patterson.
Here.
Mr. Heller.
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Item 2, announcements and proclamations. We do not have any this evening. Item number 3, we have public comment. We will start in the room. Feel free to come forward, state your name and neighborhood of residence and address the board.
Hello, my name is Elliot Killian. I reside in Ferguson Township on Harris Street. I gave this to you all, and I can email you a copy later. It's a little brochure about ADUs, accessory dwelling units. These are little houses that are next to a bigger house or another house. I ask that you consider adopting them, allowing them in the township in all residential zoning except for rural residential, or if you wanted to have rural residential, you could have that as well. I look at these as one solution to, so we're currently in a housing crisis. There aren't enough houses for people. And so one way to address this is having these ADUs. It's a market-based solution to address housing. It allows people to build additional housing on their property. It gives property owners more freedom to allow them to do what they want on their own land. And it also addresses, family needs, caring for elderly. I used to live in Vancouver, Canada, and oftentimes these ADUs were used that property owner would build one in the back of their lot and rent out their whole house. So it meant that their whole house was freed up for people to live in, and then they would retire in the ADU. Because sometimes, when you get older, you want to downsize. So it allows different housing options for families. On the right, you see what I'm asking for, recommendations, township, for you to look at adopting regulations that allow for ADUs, for the Planning Commission to review them, such as setbacks, minimum lot sizes, and allowing ADUs in different residential zonings. And so now I'm asking you to send this to the Planning Commission to review ADUs and relevant regulations. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for serving.
Thank you, Mr. Killian. I did send a copy of your wonderful presentation over to Ms. Stevens. I'll just note that this has been something that our Planning Commission has talked about. I do look at our zoning and SADO ordinances as living documents. They don't necessarily sit on a shelf indefinitely. We do take a look at them from time to time. And I do know other municipalities within Pennsylvania have adopted this concept, and I remember on the Planning Commission even bringing up about some of those municipalities. So definitely thank you for your time. Item 4, we have the approval of the minutes, which were delivered to you on Friday. If there are no changes or corrections, I would entertain a motion to adopt those minutes either as a group or individually.
This is Matt. I move to accept all minutes in one motion.
Do we have a second?
This is Patty, I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. Okay. Item 5, reports and presentations. Item 1 is our diversity, equity, inclusion activities and acknowledgements. Martin Luther King Day was yesterday. I will note that some of the supervisors as well as staff did attend the Martin Luther King Day Memorial Banquet. It was the 50th banquet. Got to hear from some good presenters and performers at that evening, and just wanted to point out that over in our neighboring township, Supervisor Pam Robb won the Humanitarian Award, so we congratulate her for that. She's had a remarkable service to our community. So, other events, the Lunar New Year is on January 29th, and International Holocaust Remembrance Day was on January 8th. Item 5.2, authorities, boards, and commissions reports. There are none of those this evening. Item 5.3, we'll move on to our COG and Regional Committee reports. And I will recognize our representative of the Climate Action and Sustainability Committee.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. Thompson. So I think the highlight coming out of the meeting that we had was that we did pass the motion to enter the solar power purchase agreement at 80%, and that is now moving on to the executive committee. We also passed a motion to pay some legal fees totaling about $4,727. Again, that will also move on, or has moved on to the executive committee. I would say those are the big outcomes. Also, just in a general point of order note, Betsy Whitman will continue on as chair, and I will continue on as vice chair.
Thank you. Any questions for our representative? Seeing none, the Facilities Committee representative is recognized.
That would be I. The main facilities agenda point, there's a few, but the main one was the Hess Field. That is trying to find the right words here. I think it's looking like it's over budget already. So the COG staff has done a really cool, they've done some impressive things and finding other ways now. They're bringing some options before the table. We gave kind of as a committee, I think we went kind of a hybrid option. We said go with instead of building a new thing, bring in the luxury porta potties, if you will, kind of a Penn State behind their soccer field. They've got kind of one that's a little bit more high tech. Bring something like that to the table at a lower cost. Give us a little bit more longer time frame to explore some other things like perhaps running sewer as an exception to that space. So that's one of the biggest things from facilities. There's also a lot of really good work going on in terms of just understanding what all of COG's assets are and how we're using those various facilities for all the assets. So there's some leased space, there's some owned space, and so can we find a way to bring it all together into one place at a lower cost to each of the municipal members. It's the main thing from facilities I'd like to share. Any questions on any other things that were from the meeting?
Yes.
None for me.
All right. Seeing none, I thank you for your report, Mr. Patterson. That will move us into the Public Safety Committee.
And that is also me.
Oh,
Every year, public safety has kind of a number of appointments. Fire chiefs, or assistants to the chief. Those were all made, 2 of them being Ferguson Township residents.
Nice.
So congratulations to that full list. We'll see it in the COG meeting. Other than that, there's some other inner workings, but nothing overly nothing huge to report out other than just some annual things.
okay. Any remarks for public safety? Seeing none. Human Resources Committee. I am the representative for that one, but I did have Ms. Stevens attend in my place. I was going to say, good, however you want to pivot this one, Patty.
Well, I can give you an update. I mean, it was primarily a organizational meeting in which, Jeremy, you were elected the chair, and that's what happens when you don't show up. You get to be elected chair. And other than that, really, the discussion, the only discussion point was about the personal leave policy.
Yeah.
It was something that the labor attorney had flagged as a weakness in their policy and something they should have addressed. And there was a little bit of a discussion about that. I think it's going to come back to you all because there was not really an action on it, or if it was coming to the general forum. But that was about it for the Human Resources Committee.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens, for attending in my place. That leave of absence policy, at least the no unpaid leave of absence has been something that we have talked extensively. I think, I don't necessarily want to speak for everyone. I think one of the big concerns in that committee is just making sure we can encapsulate like any scenario where a reasonable leave, even beyond, say, somebody maybe wanted to take a long trip for a month or had some other circumstance where we wanted to retain them, but they had the option to work without pay. So just trying to find the right avenue. And I think we have identified, there are various policies like FMLA and a few others that kind of do encapsulate that, what we're trying to achieve, but just trying to look for some of those one-off other scenarios, like the example of maybe taking an extra week on a trip if your vacation's only good for 2 weeks and you wanted to go for 3 weeks to like Europe or something. So definitely appreciate you stepping in and for your insights in that. Any questions for Human Resources? Okay. Right. Thank you. That will then move us into the Finance Committee.
Okay, I was unable to attend, but Ms. Strickland did come into that meeting, so just wanted to share that there were discussions also around the Hess bathroom being over budget, and asking right now for more information so that we can continue the discussion and revisit maybe some options from a financial side of the house, especially with some of the options coming in more than double the allocated budget. So there are a lot of concerns that, or a lot of focus that's going to be brought to that in the upcoming months, I'm certain. So again, just kind of piggyback off of what Mr. Patterson had presented. Also, just in wrapping at a high level, the chair, Rich Frank, will continue as chair, and vice chair will be Nalini Krishnakudi. She'll continue in that role as well. So I do want to just also say just an appreciation to my fellow electeds here. It's nice to have depth on the bench and be able to have folks step in and cover when maybe I might not be available. I hear that others might not be available. I like being on teams where we can do things like that. So I just want to say thank you. And, I appreciate that. And if anybody needs support, please let me know where I can help. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Finance?
Now that this has come up twice, I wonder if there's something that we need to do as a board here, whether it's, I don't know, do we need to have a resolution like we're not spending not one more red nickel on this field bathroom? Again, there's a good option. There's some good options that stay to the budget and would allow the entities to maybe squirrel away some money. I just don't know. We have enough information to know that there's several ways to go over budget here. And I want to be clear with our friends in the other municipalities that we have a budget to stick to.
Yep.
And quite frankly, we have a budget that we're trying to bring down for 26, and we're just not going to entertain this. I just don't know how else to, how we should treat that in this meeting here today. Or, is there any kind of hard line documentation that we want to kind of take? Hard line's the wrong words, but some sort of small, soft line in the sand.
I have a bit of a method to maybe explore if we wanted to go down that path. Not to do anything here tonight, but maybe plant the seed for essentially putting the equation against the 600,000 that's been allocated, or actually 300,000, right? Because there was the offset with was it a grant? No, it was an offset right from, who was it? It was was a code? I forget specifically, but there was the offset that came in, so approximately $300,000 at our percentage, which runs about 27%, somewhere in there of the total COG. So we think about that and maybe coming up with a multiplier against that at some point. But that would be kind of my approach. If we were to pursue something like that, I'd like to see it. To Mr. Patterson, your points about, I would say, just being good stewards of the finance, et cetera, and recognizing that a new facility is about to come online with new fields in the next couple of years, and maybe that's the A field, and Hess Field continues to be the B field when it comes to tournaments and everything else. So potentially not investing as much. But again, those have been cases that were made last year in the discussion around that. So maybe, again, planting a seed, but I wanted to get my thoughts out there for the record.
Thank you. And I think some good feedback is good at this point. That will help you in the committees. If we did want to explore a more lengthier conversation, I think that's something to bring forward to the chair and the vice chair, and we can talk to the manager about further discussion at a later point in time. I wanted to go and recognize Ms. Stevens, who had her hand up.
Thanks. I just wanted to add to that conversation. I was going to touch on it in my Parks Capital, but Amari, to your point, I actually reached out to Corey Gracie Griffin and had sort of encouraged him to watch the facilities discussion about the Hess bathroom, the finance one, and our Parks Capital. So he was sort of on board with our concerns about the budget. Because they have a meeting coming up Thursday. And if I'm not mistaken, he'll be coming in or have a report for us in November. And we can talk to him again about that.
Just to clarify, you said November?
I'm sorry, did I say November? I meant February.
February.
Sorry.
We can wait 11 months or we can wait 2 months.
I'm sorry. I don't know. Oh, God.
Thank you, ma'am.
But thank you. I look forward to that presentation, and we'll have that on the agenda when it comes time. Any further remarks or questions for, I guess we're on finance.
I was curious if Mr. Patterson, you had anything as you kind of started the conversation?
I like your approach, and so maybe nothing for today, but I think as we get kind of down the road, I guess I'm hearing there's consensus that as we go back to our committees, we've got the same party line.
I would say.
That we're not going with any budget increases that are gonna, cause us to have to pull from the coffers and contribute over and above what we've already contributed. Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Next up, if there's no further remarks, next up would be the Land Use and Community Infrastructure Committee. Oh, Mr. Strickland's on that committee and is not here this evening, so I guess we'll defer any remarks to the next one. Did anyone actually have anything that they wanted to bring up? We can at least take note of that.
I did not.
No. Okay. At this time, the representative for the Parks Capital Committee is recognized.
Thank you, that's me. Basically, I sort of had indicated earlier that we talked about the Hess bathroom options as well. While we didn't take any formal action on it, I think we sort of agreed with what the facilities committee discussion had said, that right now we're over budget and maybe we could do the luxury trailers. We were supportive of that option to keep the cost down. And but we didn't take any formal action on it. We were waiting for it to go to the authority and to see what the authority discussion was regarding those facilities. Our meeting dates will sort of align with the authority meetings so that we can be a part of some of the planning and those important dates there. Other than that, Bruce Lord was elected chair and Josh Portney was elected vice chair, and that's all I have.
Any questions or remarks for Lucy?
Oh, I'm sorry, that
Parks
was
Capital.
Capital, Jeremy.
For Parks Capital Committee.
Either one? No.
All right. I was going to say, Ms. Stevens, thank you for your time on that committee. If I am correct, the luxury bathroom trailer cost estimate, doesn't that also exceed what was budgeted for that? No, okay.
I think there was a range, and at the low end of the range, which we know is always misleading, it was covered.
Okay.
But again, Julian Morales was there, and we had talked about the luxury trailer bathrooms at the soccer fields, and Penn State actually rents those. So he had given that contact information to COG staff so that they could also look into the option of renting. Because it is important to know that apparently those trailers have a lifespan, if you will, of 10 to 20 years. So it could be a good option for us as we are exploring a more permanent solution, such as a sewer line, or how to phase that in within a budget that is going to work for all of us. So,
Yeah, if I recall from some of the committee discussions as I was following that, what is currently presented is to own those trailers. And I did hear a remark from COG staff based on the time that they would anticipate them being in use, that they felt it was more beneficial to own those versus rent them. But both ownership versus renting do have their advantages and disadvantages. So I'd like to maybe see more discussion, or at least a further look at that. Also, I'm kind of curious how long Penn State is renting theirs as well, since that was brought up, so maybe a little comparison of taking notes there before we move forward on that. So any further remarks or questions?
Sounds like more to follow.
More to follow. All right, last committee report is the executive committee, and that is me, and I do apologize, I missed that meeting today. I've had a couple things going on family-wise, and just got it lost in the shuffle, and I do apologize to the COG staff and my committee for that. I did go back, it was a rather short meeting today, we moved forward the solar power purchasing agreement. I was named chair, so that will, both those items will be on the agenda for general forum next week. If you have any questions or remarks, just let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, item 5.4 will be the department reports, which are included in your agenda packet. Centrise is off this evening, so if you do have any questions or need clarification, we can maybe forward those to her, or James can even take a note and we can get you a follow-up if there's anything that can't be answered tonight. I was going to say, if there are none, we can move over to, yes?
Yeah,
Mr. Patterson?
just, like broadly, I did see a couple of things just as we're in that time period where we get these snowstorms. I noticed there were quite a few cars on the street in a couple of the neighborhoods, like where our plows need to get through to kind of knock those things out. Like, how are we addressing that? Have we historically kind of given folks a little warning on that, or what's our posture there in making sure our plows can get through the communities? I got some personal calls about that, so that's why I'm asking officially now.
Yeah, so I can relay that question back to the manager, but typically, the first snowfall of the year, there's a little more leniency, and the ordinance enforcement officer handles that throughout the rest of the winter, so.
Copy. All right,
Yeah.
so give everybody a chance to get their adjusted to this new season, and then there'll be a little bit more, hey, folks, we gotta do better here.
It tries to include reminders in e-newsletters as well as the website, reminders about parking in regards to snowfall. Anything more than 2 inches, your car needs to be removed from the street, so that we are able to send our crews through to clean and plow the streets, so that's the procedure.
Thank you, Mr. Perger. You did answer my question. I was wondering if there was a snowfall minimum, and yeah, it's 2 inches. I noticed a couple of our snowfall events, I think we're just simply needing to get some salt out on the roads, so we've been fortunate of mild winter. So, thank you. If there's any more questions for township staff, just let me know. Not seeing any, we'll move over to section 6, unfinished business. Item 1 will be the discussion on a memorandum of understanding for the Center County Solar Group. And I'll recognize the assistant manager.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just go back to this narrative in regards to the January 7th meeting. The board discussed and approved or authorized the manager to sign the contracts associated with the SPPA, but requested some additional information, a presentation. And so tonight, we have prepared that presentation for the board. Also, Pam Adams of COG is here, Sustainability Coordinator, to give a presentation as well. So I'm going to transition. I'm going to walk up to the podium. Normally, I would be over there already, so I'll do that.
Sounds like we need elevator music or something to play with.
I was gonna say, it's no different than what they do on the Weather Channel. They were at the anchor desk, now they're heading over to the green screen and.
Okay. So the presentation that I'm giving tonight is more in regards to how Ferguson Township fits into the SPPA, how we get the numbers that we arrive at, and then Pam's presentation is more on the SPPA overall and some of the contract documents, but trying to break down the numbers and show you a little bit of what the impact is to Ferguson Township and how this all works out for this municipality. So the total township energy usage in a year is about 584,000 kilowatt hours. To date, the township has committed 90% of its energy usage to be generated by the SPPA, or about 525,000 kilowatt hours. A question that comes up from time to time is Public Works Building 6 with the solar panels. For simple math, the Public Works Building 6 uses just under 100,000 kilowatt hours per year, of which about 80,000 kilowatt hours are offset by existing solar panels. The remaining 20,000 kilowatt hours would be considered to be part of the 10% or 58,000 kilowatt hours uncommitted uncommitted SPPA energy usage. So this is a complex chart that I put together to show you how we get the numbers and how the SPPA goes from the kilowatt hours we're using today to the solar power that is being generated in the future and how it all ties together. So the regional energy usage committed to the SPPA is about 25.5 million kilowatt hours. Ferguson SPPA committed usage is 525,000 kilowatt hours, 90% of our usage. That is a total of 2.1% of the regional energy usage. Well, how do we convert that into solar power? We use this fancy chart. This is the conversion equation to determine the size and the yield of the solar facility. So 25.5 million kilowatt hours using that equation comes out to 20.43 megawatts. That's the total SPPA generation, of which Ferguson's generation is 0.42 megawatts. How do we get that? Our share of the SPPA is 2.1%. 20.43 megawatts times 2.1% equals 0.42 megawatts. Or 0.42 megawatts, I'm using the equation up at the top in reverse now, equals 525,861 kilowatt hours, or the amount of energy that we have committed to the SPPA. So it's a very complex chart to show you how all the numbers work out and how we get to where we're going. It's pretty busy, but I just wanted to break that down so everyone was clear on how we get these numbers. The expected cost, consultant, these are costs to date. So $1,227 for the consultant, ongoing consultant fees through 2020 or through 2026, $1,813. Legal fees, $5,561. The discount factor, $3,225, and then the reimbursement from Prospect 14, $1,215 for a total of $10,611 of total outlay. Current rates versus future rates. So what we're paying currently. In December of 2023, Ferguson Township contract, sorry,
Sorry, discount factor was what?
that's the net present value of the outlay of, so Todd, help me out here with the. with the
Some of those are
terminology.
gonna be in future costs.
Yeah.
She made that, I'm sorry.
Go
That was
ahead,
in the
Pam. Go
original,
ahead.
what Pam knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, we were asked to include all costs, and the discount factor is net present value. So basically, if you put that money that you have spent in the bank, we're not gonna see the savings until the end of sometime in 2027, right? It goes online, the first year of savings is gonna be in 2027. So if you put it in the bank, you would have, with a certain interest rate, net present value, you would have earned 3,000. So it's not a cost that you're incurring, it's the idea of what you could have used for that.
Yeah, I heard this explained at COG and I hated it then, and I don't like it now. Like, it really is like, hey, let's make this higher to make it look more expensive, and I get it. Like, I understand like $1 today is worth less in the future. I get it. But that doesn't help, and it actually muddles things up, quite frankly. But okay, I do get it now.
Yeah, some
The-
people have asked for it, I understand, and that is what it is.
Yeah, no, I get it. Thank you so much.
Sorry about that.
We're good now.
The current rates versus the future rates. So in December 2023, Ferguson Township contracted a rate with Constellation Energy for 7.4 cents per kilowatt hour for 18 months. That expires in June of 2025. So in June of 2025, the township will need to shop market prices or market rates for energy, really begin that process now and beginning to look at what that will look like. Currently, West Penn Power business rate, December 2024 through May 31st, 2025, is just under 9.2 cents per kilowatt hour. So considerable difference there. The SPPA rate blocks at 7.5 cents with a 1.5% multiplier per year over the next 15 years. So the end year 15 rate is 8.7 cents. The township has experienced swings as low as just under 5 cents to all the way to 11 cents since 2017. So that's a pretty big swing in contracted prices. The SPPA realistically is creating a predictable expenditure with a lower exposure to market volatility.
I have a question there, just on that, the difference between the first bullet and the third bullet there. The first one is what we currently are paying. The third bullet is since that time, what that rate would have been if we would have gotten contracted
No, that is the current rate. So if you went to West Penn Power today
Yeah.
and got their business rate, that's what the rate is per kilowatt hour.
So what was the business rate in December 2023?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. I don't have that information right in front of me, but the rate that was provided to the township at the time was 7.42 cents per kilowatt hour. And I believe that had come down, if I'm recalling it correctly, I believe that had just come down from, I think, in the nines at that point. And we locked in at that, whenever that was offered to us by Constellation.
I can try to locate.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's my, I
yeah.
just want to make sure, like, regularly, we're thinking apples to apples. I think that's kind of what we locked in versus what the business rate is. They're both rates, sure, but one is not what we would have locked in. And I think that third bullet, if you were to redo this, which I wouldn't expect it, that third bullet would say, well, here's the expected rate for a township today, or whatever that time frame is. And so that's, you know, kind of the, even though they're different times, at least it's a comparison of, well, here's what we got, and here's what it would have been if we had to renew today. And we don't know what it's gonna be in June 2025, but we know it's not gonna be 7.5, because I do know there's been some, there's like a rate auction that's gone through the roof over the last 6 months, apparently. Does anybody know about that? I just heard about this the other day.
Yeah, so, and that's a great point, and as I pointed out on the second to last, the second to last bullet, the township has seen those swings over time. So it's just kind of illustrating to your point that there's quite a bit of flux in the market and the rate that the township can get at any given time. This is a chart that you'll see in Pam's presentation as well, but I just wanted to illustrate, or, you know, to show here that, again, this is the expected rate scenario, the bar chart showing the increase in the rate as part of the SPPA over 15 years versus what the market rate would look like if you were starting at 8 cents currently. The reality is you're going to see some crests and some valleys throughout that time. It's going to oscillate. It's not going to be linear, but one of the things that I wanted to point out there was, and again, I think also to your point, it's unlikely that even in a contracted scenario that any municipality is going to hit the ultimate valley and get the ultimate lowest price, or is going to get stuck at the highest price. So just a scenario to think about. So what are the actual energy costs? What does all this actually come out to in the wash? So the current contracted rate, paying about $39,000 a year. The current market rate, we'd be paying $48,000 a year. SPPA first year rate, back to $39,000 a year. And the 15-year rate is $45,000 a year. So really, it's good information. What does it all mean? In year 2040, 15 years from now, what's that rate going to look like against the current market rate? It's kind of the gamble that we're taking here. It's pretty low risk to expect that in 2040, I think the rate is going to be much lower than that market rate that we're seeing now. These are the brackets that the participating municipalities are locked into. There's 3 tiers, 90, 80, 60. Ferguson's currently at 90. This is the percentage of the energy usage by the township that is going to have a rate locked in through 2040. 10, 20, and 40, that's the amount of energy that's going to be essentially exposed to market volatility over that time. So in that way, what we really see is the question becomes sort of inverted. We know that over 15 years, we're going to lock in that rate. What we typically see as a municipality is you're going to get offered a contracted rate, probably for a maximum of at best 36 months. It's not always the case. It's usually 12 or 24. Sometimes you might see 36 thrown in there. You're not going to get 15 years. So having that rate locked, the question becomes, do you expect to do better than that SPPA rate over the next 15 years? And then how much do you believe that we'll be able to beat that number by 2040? So when we think about it like that, 90 and 10 is actually very conservative. And 60 and 40 would be more risky. 40% of your energy is going to be open to those, to the volatility of the market. So that's really the presentation from the Ferguson Township side of it, of how we're kind of getting into a predictable scenario over time. But yeah, that's that. Pam, if you want to, I'll answer any questions too now for Ferguson.
Yeah, I was gonna say if I can recognize the finance director and then we can go back to board.
Just a comparison to Mr. Patterson is 9.83 in January of '23.
That was the contracted municipal rate?
No, that was the market rate, price to compare.
Ah, got it.
9.8.
Okay. We got 7, but the market was 9.8. Got
Right.
it. And that was the market business.
Yeah, there's a few different rates, depending on street lights are different, and yes, but
Great, thank you,
for
sir.
these purposes, that's what it was.
Any board comments or questions?
I was just gonna say, I appreciate over the past year and change, all the different conversations that have been happening around this. But foundationally, for me, nothing has really changed from one of the earlier presentations that still holds true when I see these numbers. For about a $10,000 investment, we're going to save between $45,000 to $75,000 over 15 years. That's a deal I'll take any day. Like, all the presentations still go back to those numbers and where I've seen it. So, for me, this is full steam ahead. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll yield to Pam Adams.
I think James is going to bring up my presentation, is that correct? Or Connor? So I'm here to answer questions, and if you guys would like to see the presentation, I did watch your meeting on the 7th, and I know you had some questions, and if they've been answered, I'm here to give the presentation, or if they haven't been answered, so it's up to you guys, but I can do projected savings, I can skip through some that are quicker, but a little feedback.
I'll recognize Mr. Heller.
Do you have the return on investment timeline? I think that would be a good one just to make folks aware.
Okay, so I'm going to go through things quickly, and so if you, any other comments?
Anyone else from the board? Let's
So
see.
just be sure to lean into the microphone so I can hear you. Thank you.
Yep. Oh, okay. Will do, Patty. So if you go to the first slide, I'm going to quickly go through the documents, but spend most of the time on cost and rate projections, and then be able to also reflect what those projections would be if you're at 80% or 90%, because I know that was some of your conversation as well. So at the last meeting, the documents were included in your agenda. Maybe they still are this time, but there's basically the, can you go to the next slide? Yep. The Prospect 14 contract for 15 years so that we receive the electricity at a fixed escalated rate. The retailer, Direct Energy, is a contract for 5 years. We'll make sure that we get that electricity to our properties. It's all through West Penn Power, but that document is defined. And then Green Sky is the contract for 6 years to help us with this project going forward. The PPA attorney, we are no longer needing their services. That portion is complete, but the top 3 will be going forward. I'm going to skip this one, but no, I actually will point this out. So basically you have a current contract that you've been talking about, and that comes through the West Penn Power bill. In the future, you're going to get a contract from West Penn Power, which is your distribution, but then you're also going to get a contract from an invoice monthly from Direct Energy, and that's your generation. So you'll get 2 invoices because it's unbundled now. The Green Sky services, you'll get an invoice for this year and then next year, and then once the PPA starts, it will be that fee will be included in the kilowatt hours. And I know you talked about that. Betsy Dupuy provided some information on that. On the next slide, these are the 5 documents that were included. These are the PPA contracts. And on the next slide, this is the ongoing services. These are the steps that the consultant will help us with because they have that expertise to move this project forward and actually also report out so that we can let the members know what is happening over the next years as this project is happening. Make sure it's doing what we said it was going to do. To be able to get through this process, we have a closing checklist, and the resolution is what we're asking that to be approved by the board so your township manager can then execute all documents. The amended cost sharing agreement is the document that is explaining how we're distributing the cost to this point. Any future costs, the ongoing consultant at this point is the only one we're aware of, but any future costs, if we decide we're going to engage with an additional assistant or new consultants in the future, it would be under the MOU. So then and that's with Green Sky. We know we're going to have them for at least 6 years. Then on the next slide, this basically is the summary of the whole project, and you see those numbers that James went through, so I'm not going to go on that one. And then we can talk about the cost and rate projections on the next slide. And I don't need to go through costs because he also did this, but the consultant legal fees, the first 2 columns are fees paid to, or fees due to date. That cost is real. Going forward is the consultant, the net present value, the reimbursement for the total. And then this is the chart that explains for the whole group what is projected for savings. So Ferguson Township is highlighted. Your current commitment is 90%. With the cost being the $10,611. So if you're at 90%, your PPA rate with RECs, renewable energy credits, as you purchase them today, you'd want to purchase them in the future to meet your clean energy goals, is the 7.5 to 8.7. So it shows your year 1 savings is $3,000. On average, if you look at all 15 years, it's about $4,800. And that means your payback is between 3 and 4 years for about $74,000. And so this graph James showed with the red line being the market, and that market, when I did that chart for everybody, I had to look at the 8 cents without RECs. If you click it again, you'll see, since you purchase RECs today, the real savings is a little bit higher. You click it. Oh yeah, sorry, the green line is there. So you could see if you want to compare RECs to RECs, your savings is actually more, and I'll show you a chart at the end. And then COG, and answer a little bit to where the rates are. We just did our contract at the end of the year, and ours was 7.8 cents. So we don't know what it's going to be in 2026, what the contracted rate is, but today it's 7.8, so it has gone up since when you last did your contract. Does that make sense? And then I did do a chart on 80%, and basically the rates, the closer you are to 100%, the closer your rate gets to 7. So if you choose 80%, your rates are going to be 7.6 to 8.9 because you have 20% in that market. Does that make sense? All right, next slide. So this table shows you 80% versus 90%, and in this one I'm including RECs, so this number is going to look different because my chart for everybody, I don't include the RECs as the market. If you stay with 90% and you're looking at RECs to RECs, your payback's actually 2 to 3 years, and your total savings is $100,000. If you choose 80%, your savings is closer to $88,000. And then on the next slide, Amari actually asked at one of our meetings what historically rates have been. And so this is for Pennsylvania commercial rates. So again, it's hard to know what contracted rates would be, but this is what West Penn, so it's really the trend line to look at. Over the last 15 years, rates have increased 8.8%, and over the last 20 years, it's been 32.5%. If you look at what the rate increases are. And if you click on that, the PPA rates are what the two little dots are. So this is what the market West Penn power rates are. That's looking back historically.
Sorry, what's the number? Dot one on the left.
That's your PPA rate of 7.5, 7.6.
Oh, to the 8 point, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And so
So-
the blue line is the commercial rate?
The blue line is the commercial rate, and the dotted line is the trend line.
Copy. So a little bit of apples and oranges here as well, where it's commercial versus PPA. where
Correct, but
if
this
we-
is what the market has done. So the trend line is what's more important, is that it has been increasing, and yes, the PPA, you can't look backwards, we're looking forward. But you asked what
Nope.
the historical prices were.
No, this is great, and yeah, so the PPA is at 1.5 a year. That orange trend line, it doesn't quite capture.
Yeah, so it all depends on your starting point.
Yeah.
When we looked at this a couple years ago, the trend was a little higher, and right now it's kind of flattened out. And that's why I told you about the 20%, because it was 32.5 for 20 years. So it all depends on what 15 years you're looking at. But these are the most recent 15 years.
Yeah, this is very helpful. Thank you. And again, no one knows the future, but we can look at the past and go, well, this is, at least gives us something to say, well, we're on the right track for what we're doing here, I think.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
It's another data point. So then the next,
I have a question. Do you have any slides talking about and how sure this is to get built on time? Is there anything about discussions on that, or anything you can share that'll help us?
yep. So I know the Center County Planning Commission approved the development plan. So that has gone through. So the developer is, as far as we understand, on track for the October 26th. So basically the next steps are the signing of these documents, but because they're proceeding and enough entities have approved it at the end of the year, they will eventually be getting to a construction schedule. That should be coming, again, that's sort of we're going to talk about at the working group, some of the next steps. We don't have that yet, but it's kind of, let's approve it, and they need to provide that. But if they don't meet the October 2026 date of when they intend to have it started by at the latest, then they have a penalty that they have to pay, and it's a daily rate that adds up, and then it would be distributed equally amongst us based on our percentage. So they have a strong incentive to get it done by the October 2026.
And there isn't a date there isn't anything where it would become our fault, meaning if we don't get these documents signed by a certain date.
No, that has not been presented to us, like we're past that date or we're due for that date. The consultant is aware that all entities will be done by the end of January, so then there's the signature process of getting all of the signatures, which hopefully could take a month just because there's 10 different entities. But because of the approvals, the developer has not indicated this is a drop dead date for them.
Okay. And I know that there's at the Energy Commission level, there's a backlog of approvals there.
Yep, my understanding is they have their approval from the PJM, that the grid operators, if you want to say. We have asked, and I don't have an update that says that they got kicked out and that they are behind schedule, like that they have to resubmit, that it seems that that piece they have also. But I can confirm that. I just will know more after next Wednesday, the 29th. But that's a
Okay,
question.
cool. I'd look forward to hearing more about like that surety of this getting done October 26th. I think that's the one thing, now that we're through the documentation and contracts and agreements, all the hard paperwork, now it's like, all right, the hard, get the work done and get the panels up. Where are we with that? And so that's the one thing that's kind of, I'm a little unsure about. I mean, think about the construction of a house, it's always like, oh, wait a minute, the mechanicals aren't jiving or something like that. Like, where are we with this? Like, are we able to connect to the grid, get that 25 megawatts up on said date in October? So,
Yep, we'll be able to report back.
thank you, ma'am.
So I can go through an invoice, but basically, this is more for finance people, and if you're interested, I could walk through this, or are you guys like, it's okay to understand an invoice? Okay, I'll skip that. Electricity tier, keep going. Basically, you asked what your 2018 kilowatt hours was, and it was around 558,000, and now your usage is closer to 584,000. The difference probably being about your new public works and some other things. But that information, again, is relevant when you're looking at the 80-90, and you're probably, I hear, in the next 15 years, maybe going to have a fire station, but maybe that will also be with solar. So just food for thought as far as right now, we are using the number that's the most recent, the 2023 data.
So the commitment is to the 23 number. That's official now? Awesome, great. I think in one meeting I asked, it was like, oh, we think it's 2022, 2023, that's it. All right, Assistant Manager Program. As far as I think in our last meeting, we talked about like an energy plan. How close to done are we, is the team on that? Well, in terms of, we were looking at, we have two things that we know, that we have 584,000 that we use, not including the building, or including the 20,000 additional from the building. What we also know is that we've got this coming at the 90%. And there was an idea tossed out at the sustainability PA meeting about, we've got a generator that we run regularly just to make sure it still works, that in times that it runs, we could actually connect it to the grid and receive dollars for that, or it be used by the building or by a thing with, like, we could actually use that instead of just running it and burning off that fuel. So wanted to just make sure that's top of mind, and I thought we had a motion to like direct staff to create that. If not, we can do that now, if you'd like.
I believe that was part of three motions.
Yeah, there were a few. So just getting, like, I wanted to just make sure we're on the like stepping toward that plan of understanding how we're using all of our assets, and the next set of assets coming, i.e. solar on this building, so that we've got this coming in a year and a half. We've got I'd like to be net zero, if not 100%, like contributing to the grid every day of the week. That's, kind of nirvana for me, and just want to ask that question so that we're.
Yeah, and I can take that back to the manager as well for, an update from her. But the other thing is, one of the outcomes from the STAMP program was discussion about facilities and facilities master planning that we would expect in the next year or so to start entertaining that, of what our facilities look like, what does our building usage look like, those types of things. So that would probably be part of that as well.
Thank you, sir.
I pulled up the motions from the last meeting. Did you want me to share the motions from last
That's up to you.
meeting?
I'm good. I made
I'm
it.
good
So.
too. But just to answer your questions, if you want.
It was one of, yeah, okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. I think it's back to Pam.
I just have the last slide, which is a summary of the key takeaways, and James summarized this. You know, there's stability in this PPA contract for budget purposes. It is projected to provide savings, and then the sustainability piece helps with clean energy goals, and Pennsylvania adding solar, so it's adding diversity to the grid as well as reducing Pennsylvania's emissions. And that's all.
I would, if you go back one slide, just on that first bullet there, the stability, I would say it locks in energy prices. That low is relative. And I think it also has a little bit of like, well, we don't know where we're going to be. At the very least, I think Measure Progress said it best, we have some predictability in our pricing. So, hey, we're going to spend $39,000 this year and $39,500 the next year. It's not plus or minus $5,000. It is guaranteed X amount of money, and I think there's value to that. So I think we're good there, and we know that there's at least some savings as compared to maybe some of the rates, but we may not achieve that same savings if, I don't know, rates tank for a little bit and those ups and downs. So but I love the other, there's a holistic key takeaway, and I like that. I just wanted to impress that I don't think it's a sell
It's a
on
good
the
point.
low energy price. It's
Right.
just
It's predictability.
stability of the prices.
Correct, that's the point of that one, so thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you coming today.
You're welcome.
Would you take a motion?
Yeah, we can take a motion and then open up debate.
This is Matt. I move that the Board of Supervisors approve the solar power purchasing agreement.
Didn't we already do this?
Let me go back.
This is Omari, second.
Right.
Now
So
the discussion.
there was a move to authorize the signing of the solar power purchase agreement subject to any changes. That was last week's motion. I guess we could say this is just more of a reaffirmation, just for the record.
At 80% or 90%, I would just.
Oh,
And that was going to be my discussion point.
okay. So we have a motion on the table. I think, there is some debate, so we can go into that.
I'll just share that I'm good with staying with the 90%, and keeping us essentially 10% to market volatility as it is. Again, with the projections that we see here, potentially even more savings than the $80,000. I think there was $80,000 presented here. I would be okay with staying at the 90%.
That said, I move to amend your motion to add 90% to the motion.
All right.
Like at 90%,
Would you like me to withdraw the motion?
or just second my motion, then we vote on my motion, then we vote on your motion.
Who's on?
It would be easier if he could amend his motion.
Yes. I would like to amend my motion and put forth that the Board of Supervisors approve the solar power purchasing agreement at 90% for Ferguson Township.
This is Omari, I second that motion.
Okay, we have an amended motion on the table. Any further discussion? Not seeing any further discussion. I guess I have some comments. Well, actually, before we go into my comments, I will recognize the solicitor who has to raise her hand.
Know that the agreement is still pending being finalized, so I just look for review.
Sorry, ma'am, your internet is having a moment.
Yeah.
Stop my video, does that?
Better.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, it.
Hold up. Just to address staff, I did see a notification come through earlier about possible bandwidth problems. It sounded like maybe on our end.
Patty, how's your audio, ma'am?
I can hear you all just fine. When Betsy turned off her video, then I could hear her a little better, but everything's fine.
Yeah, this is.
So it might be from Betsy's end.
Can she type it out?
Want to try that again there, Betsy?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to say that they're subject to final review.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's the same as even last week. It was, we're authorizing the manager to sign at 90%. And yes, we're absolutely counting on your final review and
No major changes.
And no
It's
major-
getting
yeah.
Ferguson Township's name in it, knowing everybody's percentage, then you get your document that says you're that .42 or whatever that number is when we take everybody. At this point, it's probably that because COG's the last one to go. But those types of things, and obviously Betsy's final review is, that makes sense.
I was going to say, while this is not a public hearing, I just want to kind of follow up on some of my remarks last week and just have it reflected on the record if there is any public comments, but also to welcome public comments. So at this time, I will ask both in the room and online if there was any public comments. Not seeing any public comments, may the record reflect that no public comments were provided to the board at the time of this meeting. I will then ask the board did any of the board members receive any public comments through communications prior to today's meeting regarding this matter?
I did not.
Okay, I'm seeing none. Don't know about Lisa, Ms. Strickland. Yes, Mr. Patterson.
yes, there's always public comment around this. I would just say that it's nothing that hasn't been discussed before, so I don't, there's, yeah.
Yes, Mr. Hell.
If I could amend my statement, I'm going to say recently, nothing in the past month
Right.
or so that has come in related really to this.
Just looking at it between the last meeting and this meeting, I think that's very important because there was questions raised about public input on this, and I wanted to be clear, the public did have opportunities to discuss this, whether they supported it or didn't support it or were neutral on the matter, so.
The biggest thing, though, on that note, that I got was the complexity of the deal. That's the thing I heard regularly is like, this is a complex deal. And
Yeah.
yes, it is, absolutely. Just the same as, buying a house and getting that thick stack of paper, sign here.
Right.
And I'm one of probably very few people I know that will read every single document at the closing table. To make sure that, hey, what I'm signing is the thing. And so I will just say that I've gone through these documents. Eyes have been crossed several nights over the past couple of weeks. But I guess at the end of the day, it's a complex deal. It is
Right.
just the same as a commercial real estate building where we are committing to a thing as 11 other entities, some energy. And that developer is going off and getting a loan based on our commitment. And then they're going to build it and they're going to maintain it. And they've got some commitments to us
Right.
to maintain those facilities, get us the energy that we want, that we need at the price that we've agreed to. And it's all those key takeaways are the output of that. That not only are we getting locked in prices, we're getting some savings, depends on the year what that savings will be, but also some diversity of the grid. And I think that's important as we, even with the outlook of maybe nuclear comes, maybe some other things come, that's great. But we also have solar in Center County. So.
Yeah, thank you for that, those remarks, and that does remind me something we learned for those of us that attended the Pennsylvania Sustainability Conference. There was another SPPA over in Western Pennsylvania that, again, ran into a lot of things that just shows that there is complexity to this, but between them and us, we've been able to work through all those circumstances. I do have a question with tonight's vote. How does that play into the legal fees? Because there was board remark that I shared as well from the last meeting about whether or not our legal fees are actually capturing the fact that our own solicitor has been a part of the legal reviews in this process.
So my understanding at the time when Betsy was selected and the three entities agreed that she would represent and help the group in that aspect, that was how it was presented. And then the PPA attorney, those legal fees are distributed based on the cost-sharing agreement.
Yes, Mr. Heller is recognized.
So if I may, earlier when Ms. Dupuy raised her thumb up, like these still had to be reviewed, I'm like, that's right, because we have like a $6,000 investment. Like, that was the number of the solicitor's time there. So, yeah, I was feeling again that reaffirms kind of where we are.
Sounds good. Just for another clarification, when it comes to the land that this solar array would be on, that is a matter that's between the landowner and the developer, if I'm correct.
The developer has a lease agreement with the landowner.
Okay.
I'm not privy to what it is, but that's the typical way that they do this, and we know they have a lease with the landowner. And it's actually two landowners, two parcels, well, I don't know how many parcels, two landowners. Those two landowners came to the Center County Planning Commission for the land development plan, made no comments, so they are seeing it move forward. And then as far as the relationship between the developer and Walker Township, they also have a relationship because they have an arbitration agreement that states information about decommissioning, maintaining the property, so that is not our responsibility. It's the developer and Walker Township, and then the developer and the landowner.
Thank you. I just wanted to clear up some remarks that were made about government taking over prime farmland. And from what I'm seeing, this is a decision of the landowner, the farmer, and coming from a farming background, especially small family farm, we have been really getting strapped in the past several years when it comes to being able to make the farm profitable. And for some small family farms, having something like this helps bring in a steady revenue stream, as our revenue streams of just doing, whether it's crop production or milk and cattle, had a lot of ebbs and flows, and sometimes not in a good territory. So just wanted to clarify that. I also wanted to address, I feel like there's also been some remarks that may be trying to suggest that we should throw this deal out because of what happened between the legal fees and even the fact that the solar array is going on farmland. And I just kind of feel throwing this deal out is just a very irrational move. There is cost savings that we are going to have on our solar power, if not just a more steady and predictable cost when it comes to the power there. I just think it would just be a very irrational move to just throw this out, considering all the effort. As for the legal fees, sounds like that's going to be maybe something better suited for a follow-up or a review. And I'll just leave it at that and recognize Ms. Stevens.
Thank you. I was just going to respond to you about the suggestion of throwing this out. I mean, if that is rumor, people have the ability to come to these meetings, and that if that was a concern of residents, it should have been brought forward in a public meeting. It's a little frustrating to hear you speak of that without any context. Like, so is this rumor going around? Anyway, people have a responsibility to bring it forward to us, as opposed to rumors. So thank you.
Yeah, I do apologize. I am just referring to some remarks that were made between radio and social media, and I totally agree with you, Ms. Stevens, and want to note just the lack of public comments in a public meeting where this is where we converse. And I feel those comments are better suited in these meetings. So appreciate those remarks. Any other comments or? Right. Well, we do have a motion on the table, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Okay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Get on the right page here. I think we're up ready for
New business consent agenda.
new business, starting with the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
This is Patty, so moved.
Zamari, second.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Item 7.2, a public hearing on a resolution of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania, amending the 2025 fee schedule to update solid waste removal fees effective April 1st, 2025. And with that, I'll recognize the Assistant Manager.
Thank you. Beginning April 1st, 2025, the Center Region Council of Governments Recycling and Refuse Removal Contracted Service will change to Bergmeyer's Hauling from Waste Management. The Ferguson Township 2025 schedule of fees will be amended to reflect the change in fees effective April 1st, 2025. The fees are updated and included in the agenda packet. And I'll answer any questions. One note, I've scrolled down on my document here. A short-term or permanent waiver of the outdoor fee is available to residents who are eligible under the guidelines of the ADA Act. Residents must complete an application and provide documentation. The waiver may be approved by the individual municipality or the designee. Curbside recycling collection includes recycling of metal, aluminum, spiral cans, clear, brown, and green glass bottles, jugs and jars, plastic bottles, jugs, jars, mixed paper, paperboard, corrugated cardboard. Curbside recycling collection will continue to utilize the red recycling bins. Also, beginning with the new contract, extra bags or items next to the refuse cart will be charged an additional $4 per bag or item.
Zamari, I move to adopt the resolution.
Do we have a second?
This is Matt, I'll second.
Any discussion on this item?
It's a public hearing.
Yes.
Okay, I was just going to reiterate what Mr. Progar said about the waiver for the outdoor fee with the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's so important for folks as a public service announcement to realize that they have that ability to have that fee waived. So more to follow and information, of course, online at COG. So very good. Thank you.
Before I move forward, this was a public hearing, so I do want to entertain if there is any members of the public that want to speak. Okay. Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Do we have any further board discussion? Seeing none, the Assistant Township Manager will call the roll.
Okay. Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Patterson,
Yes.
Mr. Heller.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Thank you. Item 7.3, discussion on amendment to Chapter 26, Water, Part 1, Stormwater, Section 304, Calculation Methodologies, Paragraph 3.A.19, and the Township Engineer is recognized.
Good evening, thank you. You may recall we were here not that long ago talking about an update to our stormwater ordinance to comply with the MS4 program, and we did as such with a minor oversight. So what we're recommending this evening is a revision to the stormwater ordinance to include a provision for a minimum discharge for a 5-year storm. We have provisions in our ordinance to calculate this minimum discharge for anything less than a 10-year intensity. So when we added the other additional storms in, we added the 5-year, we overlooked adding in that equation for people to be able to calculate what that minimum discharge is. So in the agenda packet is that draft ordinance that essentially the only thing that changes in that whole section is the one line in there where we have the 5-year return period with the equation to calculate that minimum discharge flow. Everything else is the same. We're requesting the Board of Supervisors authorize this for advertisement for a public hearing and adoption.
Any discussions? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
I was ready to make the motion, then I moved down to the actual body of it. So,
This is Omari. I move to authorize advertisement of ordinance amendment to Chapter 26, Part 1, Stormwater, Section 304, calculation methods.
this is Matt, I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Any members of the board have any communications to pass forward? Yes, Mr. Heller.
Communications related to Jake brakes being used in Pine Grove Mills, nuisance, loud noises, etc. Maybe a future agenda item. Please stay tuned for that one. And then related to the upcoming coffee and conversations, just general updates or information that might be presented that day.
Yeah, I too had received some questions regarding coffee and conversation, and I think some of those are some good questions, and we'll forward those to staff. Anything, Mr. Patterson? Ms. Stevens?
No, just the same as the coffee and conversation communication.
Received some communication on Rock Springs Water Company. There's some news out there that there was some filings and such, and I think that ties into this consent agenda item that we saw about that MOU to apply for grants. So looking forward to continuing the momentum there, to getting some improvements in that critical infrastructure.
Sounds good. If there is no further communications, moving into section 9, we have a series of calendar items where I will mention coffee and conversation will be January 25th from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Also, another item of note, and I should have maybe made this as an announcement, but for those of you who attended this evening, if you notice, our meetings have officially moved to 6 p.m., so the Board of Supervisors' regular meetings will now start at 6 p.m., and want to thank staff and CNET for being able to accommodate that. I think that's something us as a board have brought forward, as we like to try to prioritize appropriate length meetings to better able to communicate with you, the public. So just thank you for that, and note that change. And if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Can she come off mute? No, you're still on mute.
You're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Patty. So moved.
Did we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we're adjourned. Have a good evening.
Happy Tuesday.